All right, I think we are live. So what's up, everybody? We are here today on the live show. I join with a very familiar face. If you're in real estate, you're in the Pennsylvania Eastern PA market, you've probably seen this guy's face or bought a deal with him or sold a deal to him.
There we go, man.
so Jim Zaspel, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Ian. Always good to see you.
Yeah, always good to see you. And I think today, so I don't know if you've seen any of the shows or whatever, but what I've been trying to do originally was, and I think it still holds true, but basically like taking a pulse from the big market movers in our location, in our real estate market, as to what they're doing during these times, how they're handling them, and what to expect. So it was really important to me. It's great to hear from other people that might not do as many transactions as you, or has done the kind of business you've done. But when I put enough minds together that have moved millions and millions of dollars in real estate, it starts to tell a story with where we are in this epidemic and what's going on. And you personally right now, and the timing of where it is really happens to work out nicely because, when this whole thing first started, it was like everybody locked down, everybody freeze, the world's going to end. Right. That was where it was. And I'm not going to lie. There was an unknown. There was a fear there of what the hell are we supposed to do? And it felt right to lock down and whatever. As time has gone on and people's money have, run out and, they're stuck in their houses and their businesses are shut down, there's civil unrest and nothing that seems to be happening about it. And that doesn't get better with time. It gets worse, especially when the government is not properly, handling it. So, what is your business scene? What are your thoughts with where we are now? I have some interesting thoughts that I've looked up today specifically that I think you would agree with. So what's going on with you, man? What's happening? And talk to us.
That's a lot of questions, man, but I'll
sorry. I was pretty excited to talk to you today. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. So just an overview of what we've done. So I've got somewhere around 45 rental properties, and all but I think 4, maybe 5 did. All but 4 or 5 paid us last month on April 1st. We'll see what May brings. Everybody communicated with us. One of those 4 or 5, one of those 5 people made a partial payment. So I appreciated the effort.
And you were very proactive about that, though. That was a big thing.
Yeah. I emailed, for those of you that don't know, I emailed all of my tenants. We emailed, messaged, and called all of them. This was in March. And we said, hey, listen, you get a 10% discount on April's payment if you pay early. And so almost all of them did. And then we sent another letter out and said, you get a 10% discount on rent that's paid within the grace period or early for the next 5 months, which takes us through September. And people really appreciated that. A lot of people live on shoestring budgets, and we'll see. Maybe I pissed money down the drain. I don't know. I don't think I did, but I think it bought a lot of goodwill ahead of time before any of the CARES Act stuff hit the fan. I heard some things from some sources that something favoring tenants was going to come out, and so I did that. One, to be nice, but really to be just a little to buy some goodwill with our tenants.
Yeah.
In terms of marketing, we have slowed down our marketing. Actually, just last week we started slowing down our marketing a little bit. Partly because we've got a crap ton and a half of leads in our CRM, and I realized that I was paying my employees to be lazy, and that's just because of how I trained them. Honestly, we do the newest leads are always the hottest ones, right? So now everybody's having to work harder to do the same or a little bit less, and so we're working our existing leads in our CRM. But in terms of locking deals up with sellers, it's all over the phone or on Zoom or on FaceTime. That's all we're doing for all of our contracts, which brings a lot of challenges as we deal with older people.
DocuSign, or how you doing it?
Yeah, DocuSign is how we get them signed. But in terms of like meeting with the people, having the conversation, so that was a transition period for most of my acquisitions team. Learning how to build that rapport over the phone and on Zoom, and just the technical challenge with
how many sellers in our world now? A lot of times, I don't know, how do I phrase this nicely? Your sellers are using Zoom. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really know how else to say this.
No.
But
So here's what we did is we started off saying, now, would you like to do Zoom, Skype, Google Hangouts, or FaceTime or phone? And that was just the wrong question to ask people, right? And so then we changed it to, now, would you like to talk on the phone, or would you like us to text you a link so you can just click the link and talk on a video chat with somebody, right? So just simplifying the language, upped us from like almost none to about 30% of
I was
our
gonna say
sellers.
$1 million tip right there. $1 million
Yes.
tip right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it took us from virtually none to about 30% of our sellers that we meet with are on Zoom now.
Gotcha. And that's working.
It is working, yeah. It works great, and I haven't noticed a big difference in terms of being able to get a contract. It helps us know the condition of the house a little bit better, so we can, we don't accidentally squeeze ourselves out of a deal or contract to buy a crappy deal.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. But I mean, that's going to be we've all been talking on this show about like adapting and how companies are adapting. So for people that are aware, like if you're selling a house, and I can attest to this, Jim's a good guy to call. Jim's a legitimate buyer and will buy your deals. So if you're watching this and you want to call somebody, if you'd like to do a Zoom, get a link to a Zoom meeting with Jim, hit Jim up. But your adaptation. So I've talked to a lot of like mega realtors in the area, and they've been doing a lot of like showings and so forth during Zoom. You're the first guy I've talked to that's like been using Zoom to actually lock up sellers' contracts, let alone successfully. That was a really good adapting thing to be able to do here, I think.
It works, and I'll tell you the biggest hurdle internally for my staff was letting them realize or helping them believe that they actually could develop the same rapport with the seller over the phone or on Zoom as they can in person. And if you have an outline for a sales process, it is just as easy.
I mean, that could be the future. You start to think about how efficient you can become, like because you're building out an hour to go to somebody's house and to do this and do that. But like you could like double or triple your leads, your calls with that, right? Like what you can lock up.
Correct. So what we're doing now is we're actually putting out more effort and a higher number of leads. We're not pre-screening the leads. We use the term disqualifying. We're not disqualifying our leads to see if it warrants a time. It might be a 10-minute appointment. Great. So do your 10 minutes of due diligence, do your 10-minute appointment. And so now we've maxed it at no more than 6 per day per acquisitionist, because if they do more than that, the follow-up pipeline gets to be gargantuan.
Gotcha. Okay. So I love that. So something that I want to kind of jump into is like, I kind of have a feel for where everybody is right now. You guys are adapting. You guys will thrive coming out of this. And you're one of those guys that, I'm going to know for the next 10 years of, people are going to look back and go, how do I say this? People wonder where people came from, and they think it was magic. It's really not magic. Yeah, right. It's surviving, adapting, and having grit, right? And learning from your mistakes. Like if anybody has done that, it's certainly you. So I think, when everybody looks back in 3 years and be like, how is Jim making that kind of money, whatever you're doing, it didn't happen by chance. Like these are the moments that define you, right? So, but more importantly, I think we've all determined there's been a washout period, but the means doesn't really justify the ends as far as I've been seeing, and what I can honestly say my opinion is at this point with what's going on. And what I mean by that, and, I completely agree with, the first responders, and like we should be doing everything we can for them. I think it's fantastic. I think what they've done is great. I'm also seeing, though, something that we have to consider as like a population that, worst case scenario at this point, you're looking at 500,000 deaths worldwide. That is not justifiable for 8 billion people being locked down. And one of the things I literally looked at this morning, because I was like looking at like other causes of deaths and stuff like that, I look at it and go, there's 3 other diseases on the top 10 causes of death in the entire world. 3 other diseases, not take out car accidents, take out like heart and everything. 3 other diseases that every year kill like 1.5 million to 2.5 million people every year. And we are not locking down the economy and shutting everything down. I think one thing we're going to see with this, which is going to be really bad, is going to be long-term effects of things we didn't see. You saw the little food chain stuff coming up earlier this week that Trump immediately signed out of order. He was like, you guys are open because you can't have that stuff happen. There's real effects that we're about to start to see due to this overreaction. Like, what have you been seeing? I know you went down to the picket and all that stuff. Like, what are your thoughts on this?
Sure. So I think that the virus is real. Here's a backstory. So I was in San Diego. When did the NBA get canceled? It was like on a Wednesday or Thursday, right?
Yeah.
I was in San Diego Sunday through Tuesday that same week. Right. And so it was like crap. And on Monday, so I was like, this is a BS. It's nonsense. And I forget those dates. I guess it would have been early, mid-March. Right. And I thought it was nonsense. And then over the course of like 3 days that weekend, the following weekend, I did a complete about face, and I said, you know what, we're going to work remotely. It was before any governor said we had to. It's just I felt it was my social responsibility to my team members and just to do my little part, right? And so that was my mindset. And if you looked at the growth rate, it was a growing multiplied by a factor of 3 daily in Montgomery County where I live. So every day it was a little bit, every 3 days it was more than doubling. I had the numbers wrong. Every 3 days it was just over doubling. And I was like, holy crap, by mid-April, late April, everybody in the county is going to have it. Well, that held true until we got to about 1,800 people. And then like we're still adding like 100 new cases a day. And so I think it's a real thing. Obviously, you can't deny it. I do believe that we've been lied to in terms of the numbers of deaths. In Pennsylvania, the governor's office has now openly said they're counting presumed cases from symptoms without testing as part of the total count. And they're using those numbers to justify us staying at home, which makes me crazy. I think it's been a legitimate thing that has been blown out of proportion, but more importantly, it's been hijacked by I'll just say it. Our liberal governor is one of them, right? So in the stay-at-home order, he says, one of the last things I listened to him say it. He said that we've got to use times like this to realize how important our frontline workers are and how much they deserve a living wage. Here's the real life translation: minimum wage will be gone, right? And now he's going to say $15 or $18 an hour is minimum wage. Is what he's trying to get to. Like some states have gone, and so that he can quote unquote help all these lower wage people. Never mind the fact that 2 things are going to happen. One is that those low wage jobs, I go to Giant in Flowertown, right? There's this robot driving around, right? Kids love it.
I've seen this thing.
And it tells you there's a spill. It just replaced about 3 minimum wage jobs, right? With no liability of labor law stuff. And the other reality is, these minimum wage jobs, we hear the politicians talk about how it's not a living wage. People deserve a living wage. Bull sugars. You do not deserve a living wage if you do not provide a certain amount of value to the marketplace. And these minimum wage jobs are not meant to be life-sustaining. They are meant to be stopgaps. They're meant to be temporary. They're meant to be for less educated people, i.e. high schoolers, right? Between jobs, kids home from college, whatever. They're not meant to support a family. And for the government to step in, and I think this is why it's been I don't understand. I was talking to a friend of mine, an employee actually, but he's also a friend, this morning. And he said, Jim, I don't understand why it's like the people on the left want us to stay closed, the people on the right want us to open up. Like, why is this a political thing? I said, I think it boils down to really this fundamental difference. Conservative or libertarian people tend to think that government is the problem and that the people and our freedoms are the solution. And people on the left tend to think that the government control and the government reaching into things is the solution, and that freedom and people and businesses are the problem. And so it's 2 conflicting point of views. I think that's why it's turned into something political, because it kind of got to the essence of what one side versus the other believes.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And it's right. You're right in the way that, you go back to like John F. Kennedy, is you're like, ask not what you can do, your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, right? That's such a profound statement in times like this. And, but I think about what you just said in terms of like, so if the governor wanted to take up the fight at a different time. Don't use this particular time as an opportunity to push an agenda, right? Like this isn't the time for that. Like it's like poor taste, right? Like I get it. There's opportunities, and he's not going to be the only guy. I'm sure there's other politicians that look at this and go, they're spinning this as fast as they can into whatever agenda they're going to get, because now is like the biggest sleight of hand that we're ever going to see in our lifetimes. Like I thought it was 2008, but like the transfer of wealth that we're about to see from the trillions of dollars that are being moved, like this is a sleight of hand that we're seeing masked by the virus. And there's other things that get dropped. I always tell people during like cycles like this, like pay attention to the other news headlines that normally would have blown your socks off, right? Like there was one recently, like yesterday or the day before, I don't know if you saw it, but it's like government declassifies like UFO files, no big deal. And it was like, wait a minute, what? Like aliens are real? What? And then, normally that would have been like substantial.
Major headlines, yeah.
Yeah, but right now, no big deal. So that's like, hilarious. You can really get things in front of people when they're scared, when they're just scared and paralyzed, because that's all they're going to focus on. And right. And the governor, he knows that. You put an agenda like this out there. I don't think the taste and timing is great, but they're taking advantage of an opportunity. And that's just one of like a million things that are probably going to come down the line now from the economic hardship. Like, the other thing people have been talking about is like the cure worse than
The disease, yeah.
with the disease. Yeah. And it's like, well, what does that mean? At first I was like, 4 or 5 weeks ago, I was like, that's a bold statement right now, like too early. And then now I'm like, you're going to have people locked at home. You're going to have, people will become alcoholics that weren't alcoholics before. You're going to have addictions. You're going to have abuse. Right. Yeah. I was going to say, we're on our way. There's going to be people that will die. There's going to be addicts that can't get help. There's going to be people that are restricted. And what's that number look like over the next year? Like not now, but what does that look like over the next year? And I'm not saying what's right or wrong, because I believe people truly need to, there is a real threat with the virus that was in place. I do think the best way you've said it though, is like, we probably have gone overboard. Let's get things back in action. It seems like we're heading that way. Don't use this time to capitalize on an agenda. Like you shut us down. Let's get back to where we were. I think that's where you were.
Yeah, it's true. But do people on the right take a government check? Pam Thistle, interesting you mentioned that. So
Pam's good lady, watches our stuff, yeah.
That's great. So it's interesting you mentioned that, Pam. We applied for the EIDL. It starts off as you get a grant advance thing on it, and we got a $7,000 check. And I thought the exact same thing you just thought, Pam. I'm like, and the reality is, I don't need this money. I will be fine. Worst case scenario, I fire everybody or lay off all my employees, and I'm fine. And I don't feel right. And there's one gal that works for us, and she said, I wasn't planning on talking about this, but you kind of put it there, Pam, so I'll go over it. One gal that works for me, and she's very involved in feeding needy and help. She's got servant's heart, and she just loves helping people. And I said, hey, listen, I said, I'm a Christian. If I'm going to support a nonprofit organization, I'd rather it be one that's more in line with my worldview and my beliefs and whatnot. So I said, listen, I said, what are 3 food banks that are Christian based in the area, the closest to here that you have worked with and do good work, and they make the dollar go the farthest. And so she gave me 3, and so out of that $7,000, there was a family I knew. They've had a horrible run of bad luck, so we gave them $1,000, and then I gave $2,000 to each of these other 3 food banks. I gave away the $7,000. I don't think people have to do that. I think that people need to be determined, or people need to do what's right according to their own conscience. But I think you make a great point, Pam, and that is that if we believe that to be the case, we on the right don't tend to believe in government handouts. If we take one, what does it do to us? In terms of the Paycheck Protection Program, well, the government's enforcing us to spend that money on employees. 70% of what you get through a PPP has to be spent on payroll-related expenses. If not, then you got to pay the money back with interest. So great point.
Yeah, that's good. That's cool, you Jim. I mean, I think that's really the reality. Is like, if you can't rely on your government to make the right decisions with what's going on, you got to take some of that into your own hands, and that's what you did. You said, like, as a human being and being responsible and like looking in the mirror and sleeping every night, like this is what will make me feel right about this $7,000. That's really awesome. Actually, it doesn't deserve to be undermined in terms of what you've done, because a lot of people are going to take that out and they're going to like buy a cruise with it. Right. And it's supposed to stimulate the economy, but there are real people that need this money. I'm not, I don't apply, or I can't get the $1,200 or whatever it is just due to income. But if I was, first thought in my head was like, this needs to go to somebody that needs this, period. Like if the government's not going to give to somebody that needs it, my responsibility is to give it to them. And, that's a thought, that's a consideration I hope a lot of people have, is that like, if you can't, cause like, honestly, like you look at your tenants, like what you did for your tenants was really nice. And, that money, if I had tenants that and I had that money, I would have said, look, I'm going to credit each of my tenants this much money. I would have spread it in an area where like, these are people that might not have groceries. My brother's fiance is in social work, and she, it's not that hard for middle class to survive this. It is hard for lower class right now. And it's like, we're like, hey, we got to, take a month or two and deal with this, and it hurts our bank accounts. But like, these people are right now really considering, where do I get food and water? Where is my shelter? Like real considerations. So opening up the economy isn't just about us getting back into business. I mean, it has a lot to stimulate it, but there's real lives that are going to be affected, survival mindsets. Right. And then we're next though. So you push us far enough, you lock us down long enough. Like, I don't know how long this open up process is going to take truly, But if it goes long enough, you're going to start tapping into the middle class's savings, and you're going to start, pissing off, I guess, and then it just goes up the chain. So I don't really know how this plays out. Honestly, it's Friday, supposed to be opening back up. What are your thoughts? How do you see it running?
I think it'll be many months before we're back to normal. I cringe and I can't stand it when I hear politicians say there will be a new normal. Bullshit.
Yeah.
This is America. We have the right to liberty and pursuit of life, right? I'll just summarize my thoughts with this. I read the story, this video. There's this gal in Dallas, Texas, and she said, "You know what? Enough's enough. I haven't had any income since March 26th. I'm opening up my salon, and we'll exercise social distancing. We'll set out chairs every 8 feet or whatever it is on the side for people to sit. We have masks, and we scrub, and we sanitize." And she opened up. Judge sent a cease and desist order. And she holds a rally. She rips the thing up, and then armed supporters of hers show up at her salon to make sure she is not hassled. And I think that is a very good thing. I think more of that needs to happen in America.
Yeah, I think, I saw a post the other day that caught me off guard, which said, there's a lady posting, with her with a mask, and like everybody was 6 feet apart. She was at Trader Joe's or something, and she said, getting used to the new normal. I was like, whoa, wait, what? New normal? I was like, this isn't. No, I was like, I'm not. I personally have no interest in living in a place where everybody walks around with masks. Like, that's not okay. No. That's not cool. Like, you can't
move somewhere else, man. No.
Yeah, I won't do it. Like, I'm not. And it's not because I care about a mask. It's because, like, just to lay down and accept that is like that. Then what's next? And then what's next? Right? That's the question. Is like, how far do you push?
Yeah, like I had no problem wearing a mask. My wife's Chinese, right? And so they're especially wary of this thing. And so I was wearing a mask to make her happy and to make sure I kept my kids safe. And I was glad to do it. Yeah, I felt a little silly at first because I was like, 1 out of 3 people at the grocery store wearing a mask. But I was fine to do it. Now that we have to, I hate it.
Because how far are you going to push, right? So like the question is, like, I look at this and go, what do we accept? Where will it stop? And it's like a mask is like a testing the waters thing, right? The mask is just, that's all it is. That's not actually, like, what you think the mask is stopping the disease from spread? Like, it's not. I mean, maybe a little bit, but you're gonna see how far you can push. The next thing is, I don't know if you've seen, but there's been a lot of talk about. So there's supposed to be a vaccine coming out in September. Does that become mandatory? Like, that's a big statement.
All they want. You have to step over my dead body to give it to my kids. Literally.
So right. So yeah. Like, how far are we going with this thing? I don't know. I think the new norm needs to get back. One thing we compare this to in some of the other shows we've had is like 9/11, right? So at first it was like you could run down to an airport, jump on a plane, and you're gone. And then everybody, all of a sudden after 9/11, boom, they stopped doing anything and they wouldn't travel. And everybody was so scared to do anything right now because everybody would be scared to go to a restaurant. So there's that factor. And then what happened was everybody pushed back and started to return to normal, but some stuff sticks. And that's the stuff that scares me. It's like, okay, so the TSA is like this huge entity now, and you can't get on a plane for like an hour or 2 hours. So like, what stuff now is going to stick? Because we're going to push back, but then what's not going to go away? And then how much do you give? What do you think? Like, I hope masks are not the norm. I'm not going to go to a football game with a bunch of people with masks on. Like, you know what I mean? Picture that.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to stick. I think there will be strong elements who make either mandatory testing, screening, or vaccines try to be a thing. I just can't see it, and maybe it's because I'm naive, and maybe I think America is better than it now is. I don't know. I can't think of a thing that I believe is going to stick. I know there's going to be lots of stuff people try to make stick, but I can't think of a thing. I do think, with regards to what you said about people being they were afraid to get on an airplane. They were afraid of all the Muslim people, right, after 9/11. I think that people are going to be afraid of or think twice about going to a restaurant or the bar or whatever. And I think that people need to, first of all, realize that the numbers do not justify the amount of fright that we have around here. Mm-hmm. They just don't justify. So that's the first thing. And second of all, I think that there's a lot, and I think the longer this goes on, there's going to be more and more pent up passion to like get out and do stuff, right? In terms of going out to eat, traveling, hanging out with people. And I think that for small business owners, especially people with storefront type businesses with walk-in traffic, I think they need to open up before as soon as they want to. They need to open up and be loud and vocal about it. And I think that people will rally around, especially I don't know, maybe in certain areas more than others, but I think that local people, that are nearby local businesses, I think they'll rally around and support it. I can tell you right now, if a bar, a restaurant, salon opened up in Fort Washington, Ambler, or Glenside, I'd be there, right? Partly out of
Well,
principle.
yeah, and the question is what you just had happen in Texas, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to send your own localized military / police force in, like that's a big risk to turn on your own people, right? Like that is like, okay, like I'm trying to make a living, literally trying to make a living.
Right.
Like that press is no joke. And obviously you saw the one in Texas. I think we're probably talking about the same one. I'm like, that's one place. I was like, you start doing that. And like, so the government probably also knows it's time. They've got to let this stuff open because they're like, we're going to push the limits of civil unrest. And, I don't think anybody wants to test that, hopefully.
I think one thing I was glad to see is William Barr, the Attorney General, U.S. Attorney General. He's starting to elevate his disapproval of what some governors are doing. I think, and I hope that if this continues on a state level, I hope that we start seeing some meaningful pressure, and I don't know if it's legislation, I don't know if it's some sort of legal action against some of these governors, but I think that's a real possibility if the governors try to take this too far. I know that Cuomo, Murphy, and Wolf will fight it, but I do think it's coming if it goes on much longer.
Yeah, I mean, it's as much as I have my own opinions on government and in general, and you have your own. It's like there are players in there that are willing to push back too. It's not like everybody's bad. It's just some people just don't play it right. So that balance is really important. I think in terms of you've got to have a backstop to something like this because it'll just go on forever, indefinitely, and that's got to be controlled. So. Yeah. I think, I don't know. I really wasn't sure where you stood. I mean, I knew where you stood on this. You're ready for the world to be back open. And I think there's a whole lot of people there right now. I think, I don't know if you've noticed, just like on social media and stuff, it used to be a lot more like, don't go outside. And now people are like, this needs to be over. Like, this is it. And I'm seeing it all over the place right now. So I know this is a lot of people watching this and I'm seeing in some of the comments, people just making mention that they're ready. And honestly, I was talking about the one statistic that's going to be super interesting, I think that we got to look at when this all shakes down. So there's different countries at different levels of like lockdown, that the action was taken. So people were like, oh, Trump was late. Oh, the Chinese like forced people into buildings. It was crazy lockdown. And then you have like Sweden or something that's like, look, just, stay away from each other if you could. So you have like this leniency, like in a lenient country, and then you have a lockdown country of everything in between. I'm really curious to see the actual effect numbers within a percentage of like what an actual like complete lockdown was to a completely lenient country. My guess is the fluctuation might be something like small, like 10, 15%. When you're talking about 500,000 people, you're talking the difference between like 500,000 people dying and 550,000 people dying. Completely negligible, right?
Well, so I heard that the number of people in Sweden is almost equal to the number of people in New York City. Right, and the person
population,
population. The conservative talk show host was saying, look, they didn't, they were fine. Like was it 1,300 people died, or it was a very small number, forget the number. The point that was being insinuated was that if New York had done the same thing, they would have had fewer people die as well. I think the big difference is that New York is very condensed. Same number of people, but condensed, right? You go
population
subway
density,
systems. Yeah. I think that's probably going to be a factor. But what's crazy is the Chinese government, when this first started, like now this has been demonstrated and proven that they restricted domestic travel from Wuhan and out, and nobody's allowed to fly to or from Wuhan, right? But they did not restrict international travel from Wuhan. Like, how crazy is that? Yes.
wait. I mean, you could go down a huge rabbit hole with that. That's a big rabbit hole. Yeah, that's a big rabbit hole. That, I mean, you're like intent. Okay, I see where you're going with that. I mean, I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know. Hey, is your? I don't want to keep you too much longer, Jim. But I forgot your wife. Your wife is Chinese. So we had a guest on here, Joey Chan. That was, he's Chinese as well, and he said like there's been racism and like real concern for that he's bumped up against. Has your wife or you experienced any of that? Like, I didn't even think of that. Like, people will just like you said, the Muslims from 9/11. Like every Muslim then has to be anything like that come up or yeah.
So I think the vast majority of Americans of any race have nothing against somebody of another race. I think that is true of the vast majority of whites, blacks, Asians, brown. I don't care what. The vast majority of people couldn't care less what color you are, right? And I'm one of them, right? I'm sure you are. I did a Facebook post. There's this Facebook group, Reopen PA, just like it sounds, Reopen PA. So I'm a member of it, and I made this. I said, "Here's my post." I said, "My wife is from China, and she said she made the point that she's disappointed in the American people and how easily they're letting their freedoms get taken away. And as she said, in a sense, it's almost worse than communism." I told her not to worry. We've about had it, or there'll be a widespread uprising. Agree or disagree? And so there's like a few hundred people commented on it, and the vast majority of people said. Couldn't agree more. Glad your wife is here. And there were 3 people who, one of them says, "Fuck you, fuck your dumbass wife, send her ass back to China." And then another one said something along the same lines. And
the internet's a special place, man.
3 people out of hundreds. And I think that's you just gotta write those people off as shitheads. That's all you gotta do, right?
Yeah, I guess you can't. What are you gonna do?
No. Yeah, but no, in terms of that's the only thing I've experienced. I've never heard a sentiment otherwise, right? Because I think the vast majority of Americans are good people and that they realize people are people. My wife's been here for 17 years, right? She doesn't cause the freaking coronavirus, right? Well, I guess she's not quite as American as you or but you get the point. She's a citizen and she's been here for 17 years, and I've not experienced any of it besides that. And I think the vast majority of people don't feel that way. My wife's parents said that the Chinese people say that their people feel that way, but I've never heard a story from my parents or my wife, or never heard a story of anything bad happening.
Yeah, Joey said on there he had a buddy that experienced something, and this was early on actually, and I think it was right when like the fear was that people were trying to place their anger, and they just started pointing at people, and we're like, this is ridiculous. And I would have hoped. I mean, you're always gonna have negligent idiots, right? That act like that, but I would have hoped after the lesson from like 9/11, that's like, look, like people that really got racist over that stuff, like you can't just take a race and say you're responsible for a virus, right? Think about that statement. It's insane. But I just, because your wife is Chinese, I just didn't even think of that until you mentioned that, and then thought, so 3 idiots out of 100, and their opinion doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't. So the one guy commented is like, first of all, you're a shithead. Second of all, she's been here for 17 years. Most importantly, you're a shithead. I'm not gonna. What else I have to say?
You can't. Well, you can't. You're not gonna get into an argument with the guy, right? You can't.
Right.
So, all right, man. Well, yeah. What how can people get in contact with you if they want to talk real estate, politics, or sell their house to you? How would they get in contact with Jim Zaspel?
Sure, man. I'll do 3 things for you. First of all, actually, is I live in Fort Washington, Pennsylvania. If you're within 20 minutes of here, you got a local business, a restaurant, or somewhere, a watering hole or a salon, let me know, and if at all possible, we will patronize your business. Definitely show our support that way. Reach out to me on Facebook. I think I'm the only Jim Zaspel on Facebook. Before I got married, I always tell women I'm one in millions. 1 billion. But it doesn't really mean that much. That's honestly that. So anyway, Facebook, that's facebook.com/Jim Zaspel. My blog is jimzaspel.com. And Ian, would you mind typing my email address in the comment?
Yeah. Actually, sure. I can do it. Fancy StreamYard. I pay monthly for this. Let me use it. Let me use it.
All right. There you go. I just heard about StreamYard yesterday. I was wondering how you did this stuff.
Yeah, we switched over, and it actually streams to like 5 different, like YouTube and everything. So it's multiple. Yeah, it's good. What's your email, Jim?
It's Jim the House Guy. Jim the House Guy, PA, like Pennsylvania, at gmail.com.
All right, let me just put this bad boy across the bottom. Make me feel like I'm getting my money's worth.
And I think just one last encouraging note, all the politics aside, is that I think people need to realize that business is happening right in the real estate world. Title companies are still able to do business. I just refinanced out, cashed out like $60,000 out of 3 rental properties last week. Banks are still lending. Apparently, at least one hard money lender is still lending. That'd be you. And appraisers are still doing their thing. But business is still happening. We just have to adapt. So on the one hand, I'm the kind of person I can't stand my freedoms being infringed on. But on the other hand, and this has got to be the predominant mentality if you're going to thrive in this, is say, you know what, however much I hate this, I've got to compartmentalize this right now, and I've got to focus on what I can control. And there's a lot you can control in your business, and those who are the most innovative right now, I think, are going to be the ones who do wind up thriving, like you talked about earlier, Ian.
Yeah, man. So I love it, Jim. Always good to follow. I usually keep up with your stuff, so appreciate having you on, man. And actually, you and I'll be talking again tomorrow. So
thanks for having me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, Jim.
I will see you.